Hey, Sylvia, you can unmute if you want to. Welcome aboard. You're the first one in here right now, so I'm kind of going to wait for a little bit longer. I'm Don Stiles with Keller Williams in Madison. I don't know if I've met you before. You must be relatively new to our office. You can unmute if you would, Sylvia. I want to make sure I'm talking to you for sure. I'm going to wait just a few minutes before we get started. This is the open house training. There you are. Can you hear me, Sylvia?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. We're going to wait just a few more minutes.
Okay.
A lot of people tend to join late, so it's a
Okay.
lot. This takes about an hour to get
Okay.
it done, and so it's a lot easier just to wait just a few minutes
Sure.
before we
No problem.
kind of get plowing along here and having to restart. Open houses right now are really at a minimum for two reasons, and I think probably it's because two things. Like I said before, I think it's the COVID pandemic. A lot of people don't like a lot of folks tromping through their house. And I think another reason why there's not as many open houses right now is, quite honestly, the market's so hot that
Right.
a lot of even if you do schedule an open house, the house may sell before the Sunday that you schedule the open house. So we're
Right.
seeing a lot of activity, and we're seeing houses sell pretty fast. So I'm going to go a few more minutes, Sylvia, before we really get started on the handouts. You should have access to a couple of handouts. Okay, if you look at your link that you have, if you don't have them already, you can go ahead and print those out. Okay, so it's easy enough to print out those handouts. There's one of them is going to be one that says Open House Best Practices, and it's going to have some information about some things that for follow-up that you should be doing, including phone calls, texts, emails, any way you get in contact with folks that come to the open house. You need to go ahead and do that. And the other one is sort of an open house requirement sheet. So it talks about what you should be doing to do an open house. Okay. It is about 5 after. If anybody else joins us, we'll add them to the room, but let's go ahead and get started. Okay.
Okay.
Open houses are a great way for a new agent to build their base and to build their confidence in working with people. The first year I came to Keller Williams a couple of years ago, I think I did open houses for every weekend for 6 months. I think it was like that. I don't think I took off any time. Most of them were Sunday open houses because that's the preferred time to do an open house is on a Sunday. Saturdays are also a big time to do open houses. But usually it's Sundays. Sundays are the traditional time to do the open houses. It just is. So when you go to do those, expect that that's what the expectation will be. So it's not unusual when the market slows a bit to even see open houses on other days. Thursdays is a great day to do it. Other days, it just depends on the homeowner and also the listing agent. But usually it's Saturdays and Sundays. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and read off the open houses best practices sheet because I want to have an outline that I'm going to follow. So I'm going to read through it, and then I'm going to go ahead and start open house requirements. Okay. So the suggested schedule is Tuesday or Wednesday. You want to select your open house. Okay. So you want to get busy. If you think you're going to be doing an open house, you want to get busy. Well, hey, Karen. So we're just talking about open houses right now. This open house training, we just got started. So you and Sylvia are part of the group here. I've just gone through the outline that we hand out with folks. And so we're talking about how to at least get started with the open house. You want to try to get your open house selected as soon as you can, okay? On Wednesday, you want to begin your advertising. It's an easy way to do it is you want to do it with every source that you have. The best way to do it is through your Facebook. You can do it from LinkedIn. You can do it blast email. You can do it a lot of different ways. You can pick up the telephone and call people and tell them you're going to be doing an open house. But you want to start that process pretty quickly so you can get started with it. By Friday, that's when you want to put out your signs. Okay. So Friday is when, let me back up one day. On Thursday on the outline, it says you want to call your seller if it's occupied. That's really important. If the home is not occupied, it's a great idea to go look at the home before you do the open house. The last thing you want to do is go into an open house, set up everything, think you know the home, and have someone come in the house and ask you about features in the home that you weren't even aware of. So you really want to familiarize yourself with the open house that you're going to do. It's really important to look at that open house. You need to look at the structure of the home. You need to go outside and look at the outside of the house. You want to look at it through the eyes of a buyer. So if there's an outside shed, you want to open that shed and look at it. If there's a detached garage, you want to make sure that there's access into that garage. But anyhow, you want to take a look at that home. Now, if the home is occupied, you want to call the seller and talk to them. Oftentimes, the seller is going to share lots of information about their home. If they've had some updates in the house or some special features, it allows you to do two things. It allows you to get to know the home, and it allows you to get to know the homeowner so you can connect with that homeowner. Remember, they don't know you from Adam's house cat, okay? They have signed an agreement with the listing agent. You're going to be doing an open house, so it's a great time to do that introduction with them. They may have some things that they want you to do. They may want you to open a certain door or close a certain door. They may not want certain things shown in the home. They may also want feedback. It's very important to a homeowner. If the homeowner is opening that house for people to come into the house that they don't know, especially during this time, they're leaving the home and oftentimes taking their kids and their pets and everybody with them. And so they want to have some feedback. So many times when you talk to the homeowner, they'll say, hey, give me a call. Let me know how it went. Okay. A lot of times a homeowner will say things like, hey, if there's any questions about the house, just give me a call. Okay. So you want to connect with the homeowner. That Thursday conversation, that Thursday previewing is important because of the pandemic and because houses are so hot on the market right now. I would go ahead and schedule a 15-minute showing through showing time. I really would. I'd go into showing time and schedule it. Don't take a chance of just showing up at a house that's vacant because you may be stepping on somebody else's showing. So I think it's better to go ahead and schedule the time, go there, go through the house, get out of the house and let other people look at it. But you need to schedule that time. I would do it on showing time. Okay. On Friday, that's when you put out your signs. Okay. Now, putting out signs is a big deal, especially if you're thinking about having open houses in the city of Madison. The city of Madison has some particular rules about signage, okay? Now, if you're doing an open house and you're going into a neighborhood, you can put those signs out in the yard for sure, and you can put them out on the corners, directional signs to get there, okay? Sometimes you've got to be careful in certain subdivisions. For example, Lake Forest, south of town, won't let you put directional signs for open houses. I found that out. And I had been doing open houses there in Lake Forest for a while. And I was started to put out my signs for another open house. And a realtor pulled up to me and said, you can't put out open house signs. Well, I was putting it out right next to someone else's open house signs right off of Martin Road, pointing in. And I started to put them in the subdivision. And they said, we have just passed a rule that you can't put directional signs out. So I would always find out for sure. When you are new to the open house process, either call the real listing agent that you're working with and ask them if they know. Oftentimes what you'll find on the MLS sheets, if you go to it and look it up, you'll see on there an OA contact. You'll find someone that you can call, okay? If you're unsure about directional signs in a subdivision, especially a really nice subdivision, I would just go ahead and call the OA guy and just ask, okay? So city of Madison, let me go back to that a minute. You cannot put open house signs on the thoroughfares in the city of Madison. You can go into the subdivision and you can actually come off the thoroughfares, and oftentimes the subdivisions that have a really nice garden area, you can go into that garden area with their approval somewhere inside the subdivision off the thoroughfare, and you can put some directional signs going in, but you can't put them on the road. That's a $500 fine. You know, so they passed that a few years ago, and it's kind of a bummer, but that's the way it is. So city of Madison, you got to be careful with directional signs. Otherwise, out in the county, other places, as far as I know, there's no issues with directional signs. I would say if you're going to put directionals out in the county and you're going to put it on a corner of an intersection and there's a gas station sitting there, you know, if there's a lot of other directional signs sitting there, you're probably comfortable in putting signs. But if it's like a church on the corner or something else, some other business, you can't assume that they want you or will allow you to put a sign down that corner. You can get your signs pulled. It's happened to me before. I've had a situation where I would pass this intersection because it was on the way to my house, and I'd pass it all the time. There was always directional signs there, open house signs. So I had to do an open house. So I set one there too. Well, guess what? They pulled them all. And so where I assume my open house sign is now in a landfill somewhere or somebody's dartboard. But anyhow, you got to be careful with the directionals, but you want to put them out on Friday. Now, if you get an open house on a Tuesday, you can go into the listings yard and you can put that open house sign out as soon as you can. So you can go ahead and put a rider out there. A rider is a little four-inch board. You've seen them, and they fit on top of another sign. They either screw to the top, they go sideways on another sign. Those are called riders, and you can put those out as soon as you get a listing for that week. So as soon as you get a listing, you're doing an open house for. Okay. One thing to remember though, if you put out those riders on a Tuesday for an open house you're going to do Sunday, if that house goes under contract, you may be going back to pull those riders. And that's okay. That's the price you pay for getting an opportunity to do an open house, is that some of those open houses will sell before you even get an opportunity to do it. And the listing agent should let you know. You'll just need to go back and pull your signs. If you put them out on Friday and the house sells on a Saturday, you're doing an open house on Sunday, you've got to go pull all those signs up. It's okay. That's business. That's just the way it is right now. Okay. So you want to go ahead and do that. On Saturday or Sunday, you're going to do your open house, of course. On day 7, day 8, which is listed on your outline as a Monday or Tuesday, it says you want to follow up with your open house attendees. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. It's better if you can to follow up with open house attendees the day of the open house that evening, if you can. The sooner the better. Sometimes they'll pick up the phone, sometimes they won't. You can text them, you can email them, but you want to try to follow up with them just as soon as you can. Okay, so that's sort of the outline that we're going to follow. So let's go back to the day of an open house. Okay, the first thing on this sheet talks about choosing an open house. Okay, well, how do you get an open house these days? Well, first of all, it's hard. A lot of listing agents are just simply not listing those open houses. They're just not doing them. And if they do an open house, oftentimes the listing agent may actually do the open house, or an assistant might, so you may not get an opportunity. Traditionally, if you go into our office and walk through the front doors and take a left behind Sarah's office, what you'll see is a big whiteboard there. Right now, it's fairly blank. There's nothing on it. I just talked to her this morning. Now, what happens, and I think will happen again, is that as those open houses become available, they'll start writing on that board. They'll put where the open house is. They'll put the listing agent. They'll put the day that it wants to be. It's going to be held. And once that starts happening again, you'll have an opportunity to call that agent and ask them if you can do an open house. The other way to do it is through our office Facebook page. It's not unusual to go ahead and have folks go in there and type in there, hey, is anybody doing an open house this weekend? I'd love to have an opportunity to show your home. Right now, as you're starting out and you haven't had an opportunity or the experience to do an open house, you want to shadow someone. So you may not be actually hosting the open house, but as a new agent, you want to try to shadow folks. They're all going to be different too. You can shadow 5 agents, and 5 agents are going to do a little different. Okay, they just do things a little different based on their personality. The basic format on how to do the open house is pretty much going to be the same, but the flavor of the open house will be based on the personality of that agent, their experience, and how they perform, how they prefer to do an open house. So you want to do it, you want to pick your open house. Another way to do it is get to know an agent. You know, if you come into Keller Williams, into this office, hopefully someone has pulled you into the family, someone that you know, that you talk to. You're going to have a lot of training while you're here. You'll get a chance to connect with people. So you want to go ahead and connect with agents. Start talking to them. Find, especially the ones that tend to list properties. You want to get to know them. As open houses start becoming available, if you connect with that agent, you may get a phone call directly from that agent saying, hey, Bill or Mike or Sarah, whoever, are you still interested in doing an open house? Okay. So you'll get those opportunities once they come up. So don't be discouraged right now. A lot of us, I like doing open houses. I haven't been able to do many because there's just not many on the board. But everything goes through cycles. Okay, and we're in a crazy cycle right now. So these cycles, this too shall pass. Okay, so those open houses will become available again. Okay, all right. So you got your open house. You talk to the agent. You know where you're going, and now you want to promote it. Okay. Well, there's a lot of ways to promote an open house, but the easiest way is through social media. Okay. Keller Command's got a way to go in there, and you can actually, with the approval of the listing agent, you can go ahead and run an ad at the Keller Command, and you can do it through a Facebook ad. It's not very expensive, but you got to do this early. You can't wait to the day that you're going to do the open house. So the earlier, the better to go ahead and run a simple Facebook ad, an open house ad. If you haven't done one, they're easy to do. Chandra could help you with that here in the office. Other agents could go over that and show you how to do it. Okay. Another way to do it is you can go to the Valley MLS. You can go to Valley MLS and you can actually pull up the listing, bring it down. You can go into a place where you can share it. You can share it to the Facebook page, and you can type information in there. Okay, you can type open house schedule 2 to 4 Sunday. You can put a few things about the open house, and then you need to put compliments of Sarah or Karen Ruffin. If Karen's going to give you an open house to do, or Jill Hefferman, or whoever it might be, you always want to put compliments of that person, Keller Williams Madison. Okay, it's just the way you need to do it. You need to go ahead and put that in there. You can do a blast email. You can do it that way. So you can set up a system whereby when you get an open house, it just goes out to your email groups, however you set that up. Another thing you can do is pick up the phone and call somebody. Now, when this COVID pandemic goes away, and hopefully it's going to go away pretty soon. Let me see, I got Lisa here. I'm going to admit Lisa. Hey, Lisa. We're a little ways into our open house training. I'm Don Stiles with Keller Williams here in Madison. And so what I want to do is, I see the good morning, Don, there from Karen. I didn't see that a little while ago. Hey, Karen. There's an open house best practices sheet, and there's an open house requirements form. You should be able to print them out on the bottom of the link that you have. And that's what we're going through right now. So, Lisa, if you have any questions after this, just give me a call. I'll talk to you a little bit about it. But we're pretty much going straight down through this protocol. So what we're talking about now is on the open house requirement page, and we're talking about promoting your open house. Okay. So you can promote. Now I'm starting to say before the pandemic. Okay. And believe it, it sounds and it feels like it may have been 10 years ago, but this has just been recently. Believe it or not, we could door knock. We could go up to people's house and we could actually door knock and say to them, we have got an open house scheduled Sunday. It's right down the street at 123 Main Street. It's a great open house. I don't know how long you've lived here, but if you have some folks that you know that would love to be your neighbors, now's a great time. Here's a flyer. Here's my card. By the way, how long have you lived here? And just have a little conversation with them. You're not trying to get their listing necessarily, but you're making a connection, and connection is what it's all about in real estate, just talking to people. So that will come back again. But until we start door knocking, we're going to do things on the phone, through social media, maybe even people you meet on the street. That's fine to tell them about an open house. You can do it any way you want to. I like the door knocking. That's one of my favorite ways to do open houses. It takes a little time to do it. I usually do it the day before the open house, or maybe a Friday before the Sunday open house. And there's a strategy and a way to do those door knocking. But until that happens, I don't want to spend too much time on that because we're just not doing it right now. Okay. All right. Now, let's talk about researching your home. Okay. The worst feeling in the whole world is to do an open house and have not really done your research on that structure, that house that you're doing, and have somebody come in as a guest, someone looking at the house, and say, oh, by the way, I love that particular room, or tell me about that space, or tell me about something in the house, and you have no idea what they're talking about. And it's because you haven't spent some time walking through the house, okay? You need to get to know the home, okay? Now, you can print out the MLS sheet and you look at it and it can tell you the size of the rooms. It can, and it's good to have a description of the rooms, because if you go into bigger homes, you may have homes that have libraries and studies and keep rooms, all kinds of things that you may not be familiar with. So sometimes you have to figure out which room on here, is that room over there? Is that the library, or is that the library? So it's important to get to know the house, especially in a larger home. It's okay to ask when you go in there and meet with the homeowner, you can ask them about the house. It's okay to walk through the house and talk to them on a Thursday. If you got a question about the house, you can always ask the listing agent, but you really need to know the house. And you need to walk through that house, walk out the back door, look at that backyard, look at anything in that, because there may be stuff in the backyard that guests, when they come through on that open house, they may ask about, hey, is that playset going to stay? I didn't even know it had a jacuzzi. It does, because sometimes things get missed when they put it in MLS, but it may be on the property. So it's a good idea to get to know the property, because you're kind of the expert. Even though it's not your listing, to a certain extent, you're the expert representing the homeowner and the listing agent while you're doing an open house. So it's a good idea to know that house, okay? I really believe that you need to see the house before you do the open house. I really do. You can kind of wing it if you want to, but it's not a good idea, especially if there's a homeowner involved and they're staying in a house. You need to make that connection on that Thursday or whichever day you choose to make that connection. Go ahead and call them and talk to them. They may have a front door that's a little tricky to open. Several years ago, we had someone go to do an open house, and they were relatively new, and there was a way to open the front door. The front door had actually settled, and this was a big house. And so they had trouble opening that door, and they were new to the concept of open houses. They had some trouble connecting with people, and that open house really sort of malfunctioned, to say the best. Now, I had done that open house a number of times, that same exact house, so I knew the trick with the key, but only because I asked some questions when I first started doing that open house. So that's your time to really find out the idiosyncrasies of an open house. So you really want to investigate it, okay? Now, that's your Thursday. Now, remember, you can put the signs on that yard sooner than that. So if you want to, when you put the signs out, sometimes it's a great idea to talk to the homeowner. If there's a homeowner there and you're going to go put the signs in the yard anyhow, it's okay to knock on their door and introduce yourself. Just tell them who you are. And they'll usually bring you in if the household's not too crazy. They'll bring you in and talk to you a little bit about the house right there. So it's okay to talk to the homeowner to open those lines of communication, okay? Now, open house signs. If you're going to do open houses, guess what? You got to have some signs. So when you first start out as a realtor, you may not have a sign, okay? If you're working with a listing agent and they've been doing this for a little while, they're going to have some signs, okay? It's okay to ask to borrow a few signs up front, okay? Now, they may not give you a whole bunch of signs, but they should be able to, and it may have their names on it, and it may even have their pictures on it. But it's okay. If you don't have the open house signs, you got to put something out there, okay? So here's the deal. You're a realtor now. and you're going to do open houses, and there's a cost involved in being a realtor, okay? There's several different sign companies that people use in town. One of them is called Tennessee Valley. There's another one here in town. I don't remember the name off the top of my head. Tennessee Valley, I believe, will still deliver the signs to our office on Friday mornings. So if you go on their website and you order the signs or talk to them on the phone, you can go to the website, pull it up, look at the signs you're going to order, talk to the guy on the phone at the same time. So anyhow, hey, Karen Ruffin says she's about to do door knocking today and pass out some cards. Fantastic. I know for a lot of us, they had put kind of curtailed that a little bit, but I think people are getting more comfortable with, I wouldn't say comfortable, I'd say more used to with the pandemic. So people are expecting masks and people are living their lives again. And Karen also said the other sign company is called Metro Signs. Okay. Metro's in South Huntsville, I believe. I think I've ordered some signs from those guys down there. But you can check with Metro, check with Tennessee Valley, and there's probably some others. I know that every now and then you'll see things come to us directly from vendors, from KW, but locally is, to me, always the best way to go, you know, unless it's dirt cheap somewhere else. But anyhow, Tennessee Valley and Metro Signs, and thanks, Karen, because I think I have ordered from Metro. And there's a little difference in quality too. If you look at those two signs, you have to look at, I'm not going to tell you which one feels different, but if you look at the sign companies, you'll feel that one of them has a little denser material, I think, tends to hold up a little bit. Now, you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars on open house signs, but if you're going to do an open house and you're going to get people to that house, you're probably going to need at least 5 or 6 signs. You're going to have something in the yard. The riders come in handy. They don't cost much. And what you do on the rider is you can put open Sunday 2 to 4, open Saturday 2 to 4. The rider goes on all the other general signs, okay? You can get very specific open house signs as big as you want. Okay, thanks, Karen. But open house signs, you can get them in bigger, smaller size. Okay, you don't have a great big sign. You don't need those. You need something that will get people to the house. All right. Let me say one other thing about signs. Okay. A lot of people put out open house signs. A lot of folks do. But not everybody does one thing, one additional thing. I like to use balloons. Now, some people think they may be a little cheesy, but they can be, or they can be nice. You can go to Dollar General for $1.50. You can get those Mylar balloons. You got to use the KW colors, and it's red and gold. I think black and white. I think those are the black and white I've never used. I like the red and gold because if you catch a day that's sunny like today is, those balloons are going to move. And as they move, they twinkle. They really light up. So at some distance, you can actually see that. So I usually will put them as at the beginning of the subdivision. Okay, you don't need to put them all over in the subdivision. But if you're driving down the highway or driving down a road and you see that twinkling, that does catch your eye. You know, so I will put one there, and I'll definitely put one on the homeowner's yard. So I'll put them on those ends. Now, if I've got a subdivision, there's 2 main entrances, one side and the other, I may go ahead and put a balloon at both of those entrances. Okay. And you want to make sure that you adjust the balloon so it's not waving out in the street. So that's true. If you put your sign too close to the street and you leave that string really long and the wind's blowing, it could affect traffic. So you got to make sure you shorten the balloon enough, but it does make a big difference. I've had people come to the open houses because they told me they could see the balloons. And so they would come into the open house. So go ahead and spend an extra $1.50, get that open house sign, get that balloon out there. Okay. All right, preparation for the open house. What you want to do is you want to go ahead and go to the MLS and you want to print out the MLS form for the agent. And that's going to give you a lot of little detailed information that may be not on the customer MLS. So instead of printing out a bunch of flyers to give out, what I will do, and other people do different things, okay? So this is just what I do. I will go ahead and print out the agent sheet and I'll mark it in red because I don't want to hand that sheet out. And then I'll go ahead and print out 10 or 12 customer sheets, okay? And those are the sheets that I'll hand out to the clients. They're already in the house, so they don't need to hear it's a wonderful house. Most of the time, they want to know how big the rooms are. They want to know how big the rooms are and some of the other features of the house. And I find that that MLS sheet, that the customer sheet, works best. Plus, when you set it up right in the MLS, it's going to have your name on the bottom of it. So you're handing it out, okay? So I will go ahead and do the MLS sheet. I'll go ahead and print out the customer sheets. And you're going to have to guess on the customer sheets. You don't need to print out 50 sheets if you're going to have a handful of people show up to open house. But on the other side, if you know it's going to be an active open house, you need to have enough of those MLS sheets to print out, okay? Now, you can do those here at the office. You can do it off your own printer at home. It doesn't matter. But you want to have those available. I have done open houses before and have run out of the MLS sheets. You know what? The agent that's listing the house is not going to mind if you go out to the box at the street and pull in. If there's a box out there, go ahead and bring them in, okay? People want to look at the house, give them the sheets. Okay, so I've gone out there, and as a matter of fact, I've even gone out there beforehand because I realized I was going to be short, and some of those sheets were wet. I would literally go into a room and lay them all out in the sun to dry them out before I handed them out. So I've used them before, but when you get through with the open house, if you got any of those left over, make sure you put them back in the box. You know, don't throw them away. You want to put them back in the box so the agent doesn't have to print those up again. Okay. So you want to make sure you have plenty of sign or handouts to go out. Now, let me tell you what I do. And this is how I do my open house as far as setting it up on the inside of the home. Okay. You don't want to get to an open house that you're going to do 20 minutes before that open house is scheduled. Just don't do it. It's just not a good idea. And you don't want to set up the day before. You got too many people coming in and out of that house. So you really need to set up the day of the open house. What I do is I go ahead and bring in a card table. And the reason why I do it this way is because I can wipe down everything. It's safe, it's clean. That's how I do it. So when someone walks in the front door, one side or the other, I will usually set that card table off to the side. You don't want to put it in the front and block the door unless it's a big, huge open foyer. But I usually set it off to the side. I'll put a tablecloth on top of that table, okay? And then what I'll do is go ahead and put out the things that I want them to have available because of the pandemic. So I'm going to go ahead and put out some hand sanitizers, and I'll also put out one of those little wipe things, the ones that you pull and you can wipe countertops. I'll make those available to people. I do that for two reasons. One is because it shows that you're being extra careful and you're respecting the homeowner and respecting them. The other thing is they can pull one of those and they now feel comfortable in open cabinets, okay? Because people are going to open cabinets. So if you give that to them, they are comfortable to open the cabinets as they go through the house. So I'll put those there. I'll go ahead and put out all the flyers that I made out, and I won't put them in a stack. I kind of lay them out, spread them out, and then I'll put my cards there, okay? And I've given away the little bottles of the hand sanitizers, just made them up and put them there, put my card on it, and put a little attachment to them, a little ribbon, and said, grab them when you go, okay? Before the pandemic came along, I would, and a lot of people did open houses, you would hand out water. You'd set up this little container. I had an insulated bag that I would put ice in and put the water bottles in. And then I also would usually bring in some type of little thing like a cookie or something so that they could grab it and go. Now we don't bring anything inside the house that's someone's going to drink or eat from. We're just not supposed to do that right now. That's the last word I got until this thing gets by. No cookies, no drinks. I will tell you, if you're going to do cookies and it's the 4th of July weekend and you really want to give away cookies, don't buy the big white sugar cookies with the sprinkles on them. Don't do it. If you do that, what you're going to be doing is going behind those little kids that got that big white cookie, and you're going to be picking up sprinkles all over that house. I had to do it. So don't get cookies or anything that's going to crumble and fall apart in the house, because that's going to go back to the next thing I'm going to tell you. When you do an open house, you want to always bring a broom and a dustpan, something to clean, because something's going to happen. Okay. It could be a home that's got lots of leaves outside. It could be in the fall, and people are going to come in and tramp stuff in and out of the house. Always bring a little dustpan with you and a broom, something to clean up a little bit, because people are just, they're people. We're going to catch things on the bottom of our shoes, and you always want to leave the house as clean as when you found it. So the last thing a homeowner wants to do is when they come home, see leaves all over the house or seeing cookie crumbles or things like that. It's just a bad way to do business. So we want to make sure you keep the house nice and clean for the open house. So you're going to set the table up. You're going to put the flyers out. You're going to put the hand sanitizer out. I prefer the bigger, tall squirt bottles where you actually push down, like a pump. But after I do all of that, remember, I'm doing it about an hour before the open house. So I'm going to set it all up. I'm going to take those wipes, and then I'm going to go to a kitchen counter, and I'm going to wipe down a counter. Okay. That is where I put my sign-in sheets. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but you want to make sure that you give your guests an opportunity to sign in that they visited this open house. Okay. I'm going to talk about how I do it with this card in a little bit, but I will go ahead and clean off a section. I don't clean the entire kitchen counter. No. But what I'll do is I'll clean a section, and I'll go ahead and set either a little basket or a tin, and then I'll put a stack of my cards there, and then I'll put 2 or 3 pins there, and then I'll go about 6 feet away to the other end of the counter, or maybe to a table in there, and I'll set up the same exact thing. I'll wipe it down. I'll set a basket in there. I'll put my cards there, and even my business card I'll put down there too, so that they can grab a business card and sign in. But you want to maintain your 6-foot distance. You got to stay with the CDC guidelines right now. So when people come into an open house, you want to let them know that you're going to be following the CDC guidelines. Okay. You want to remind them. A lot of people are kind of letting down their guard right now. So as people come into the house, as you meet them at that table, and you say, please pick up a flyer. Here's the hand sanitizer. And you're going to tell them a little bit about the house, just a little bit, especially this time. It's probably going to be a busy open house. So you don't want to spend a lot of time talking to the person when they walk in the front door, because there's other people coming in the front door behind them. That's why you set the table up a little bit. Okay. So you want to go over your guidelines and tell them what you're doing. You want to tell them you wipe down the counters. Please sign a card when you leave. Give us a little information about yourself and what you thought about the home. If you have any specific questions, just catch me before you leave. That's if it's busy. Okay. If it's not busy, you're going to have a little time to spend some time with the guests that come through. Okay. But just remember, you're a little bit like a cruise director these days. Okay. So you want people to see the house, but you got to at least greet people at the door. Okay. Now, I had an open house, about a year ago. And I knew it was going to be a hot open house. We had actually had 93 people come through that open house. I had never had 93 people come through an open house before. I still have not had 93 people come through an open house. A good open house for me with 20, 25 people is an active open house over a 2-hour period of time. But to have 93 people come to an open house is incredible. And that was during the pandemic. So the house wasn't a big house. So I really was more of a traffic cop, because when people would come in the house, I would route them through one part of the house. And when they left, I'd have them come back through another part of the house. Okay. So I was having people coming and going, and it was busy. It was busy to do that. Hopefully you'll have some of those busy open houses in the future, but not that busy. It was a little crazy. I think they ended up with like 6 or 7 offers on a house, or maybe 8 or 10. It was crazy. Okay. All right. So you're going to set it up. When you get to the open house, before you even set up, you want to go into the house. So you go up to the house, you go in, you're going to open up all the blinds. You want that house to bright. You want to be really pretty. You want to unlock the doors. But before you even get that far, if you go up to that open house and something looks wrong, if the door's open, it's not supposed to be open. If you see a broken window, anything seems out of place, you want to go ahead and call the listing agent immediately. Okay. Now, if you see people exiting that house with a TV set in their hand, you probably don't want to stop. You want to probably just drive on down the street and call the police, because you know that somebody is doing something wrong. That usually does not happen. But if you get there and there's anything wrong, make sure you call don't even go into the house. You know, safety first. Does not happen very often. I have not heard of that happening here, but always do safety first. So if you get to the open house and something seems amiss, call the listing agent. A lot of times what I've run into, I came to an open house one time, the garage door was open. And the reason why the garage door was open is because the homeowner had a handyman doing a couple of things, and he had exited out of the garage door and he didn't shut it. So I called the homeowner, called the listing agent. They called me back and said, oh, he just left. We just called him and he just forgot to close the door. So that was the closest I've ever had to anything being out of place. All right, so you're going to go in the house, you're going to open up everything, you're going to make sure if it's got a detached garage or some outbuilding that they can access that, unless the homeowner has a reason for not to get there, which would be silly, but sometimes they do. I went to show a house the other day, 4-bedroom house, 3 bedrooms upstairs, 1 down, and the upstairs bedroom had a lock on it. I couldn't even look in that bedroom. The listing agent said they had a lot of personal stuff in there, and right now they were working with them so that they would essentially open up that area so that people could see it, but they had a lock on it. Okay, so you're going to go in, you're going to set up everything. People are going to come in, you're going to greet them, you're going to talk to them, you know the house, you know what to tell them. Homeowners already told you, hey, listen, if there's a question, give me a call. You know, I'm going to be available. The homeowners also told you probably, hey, that I've got 2 kids and 2 dogs, and they're all in the back seat of the car. And so when that open house is over, we would really appreciate you giving us a call. Okay, so you got to remember them. You know, so as soon as that open house is done, that person has gone out the door. If they want you to call them, go ahead and call them, because they're going to want to come home. They don't usually want to drive around for an extra hour or two with Sparky in the back and 2 kids whining. It's just not, you just want to give them a call and talk to them, let them come home. I will tell you something that's crazy about open houses. You can have a 2 to 4 open house, and for an hour and a half, it used to be, not so much now, but an hour and a half, it could be you and a goldfish. Sometimes people just don't come to open houses. You know, there's no way to explain it. Good days, bad days, it's just funny that way. But notoriously, if your open house runs 2 to 4, at 3:52, a car will pull up with 6 people in it. It's like they all came in on the same bus and they all want to look at the house. Well, you're not going anywhere. You know, it's totally up to you, but I generally will go ahead and plan that buffer time, that there's going to be some late arrivals and it's going to run a little later. If that happens, call the homeowner and say, hey, folks just came in the door. You might want to tell them, hey, the open house is scheduled 2 to 4. If you have any specific questions, please ask. But we're in the process of kind of closing it up for right now. But that will be a way that you just need to handle it tactfully. As a matter of fact, I just closed on a deal 2 weeks ago. I had helped Gina Barlow do an open house 6 weeks ago, I guess. I don't remember. I had to ask Gina. But this lady came in late, and she had her grandson with her. And I will say the grandson was a very active grandson. And I'm being tactful. He was just a busy little boy. So she's looking at the house and trying to handle him. She was one of the last people that came in the house. She didn't buy that house. She took my card. She called me. I think I sent her a text to follow up. And she called me about a week later and said, hey, we'd love for you to be our realtor. And we actually got together and we closed on a house in Athens just a couple of weeks ago. But she came in late. If I would have shut the door and said, hey, we're done, guess what? I would have never been able to help that person. And I definitely wouldn't have been able to close a deal. So you have to be You have to be smart as a realtor, and you got to be helpful too. You got to have that reason for being a realtor is to help people. And I did, it just worked out. So just be prepared that some of the people seeing the house are going to come late. All right, let's move around along pretty quickly now. Now, you are required to have some type of sign-in sheet. Now, you can do it any way you want to. When I came to work at Keller Williams a few years ago, I think Gina Barlow shared this card with me. And I think she got it from someone else. All I did was change the name on the bottom. And it says, "Thank you, Don Stice." Okay. And what this card does is it captures a lot of data. Now, this card captures their name, their cell phone, the home address. What did you like best about the home? What did you like least about the home? What did you think about the price of the house? Okay. When are you looking to move? Your current home state. Now, a lot of this stuff people will not fill out. I'm going to tell you. They may put their name. They may put an email address. They may put a phone number. They may put some of those things there. Lisa, I've got these cards. Just ask me, and I will be glad to share it with you. It just when you go in there and work with it, just make sure you put your name on the bottom. Unless you want to advertise me, Lisa, I'm good with that. Okay. But anyhow, I'll be glad to give you these cards. As a matter of fact, you have a mailbox up here, Lisa, don't you? If you do, I can drop one of these in your mailbox. Okay, this one's been printed a zillion times, so it's lost a little bit of its quality. But this is what I use. All right. So remember, there's a lot of data on here, and more than likely, they're not going to fill out everything. I will tell you one way to get more stuff filled out, though. When you do an open house, depending on the house, depending on the temperature, go down and buy a little gift card. Go down and buy a card from Dollar General or any grocery stores or whatever, just a little gift card. If the house is a modest home, and I know there's a family home, a lot of kids coming in and out of, I'll go buy a couple of $10 Dairy Queen cards. And I'll say, hey, I'm giving away 2 Dairy Queen cards. But I can't give them away if I don't know who you are. So they're right here. I'll put them right there in front of them. And I'll say, do me a favor, fill out the card. If you win, I promise. I have brought them to their homes before. You can give away anything you want to in reason. But that's one way to get people to fill the cards out a little bit more. Okay. So now you're going to have all the data. You're capturing that data when people come in, and you're going to be able to share with them, the homeowner, the information that they've shared on the card. After all, when they do the open house, what they want the house sold. That first person that comes in the door says, hey, I want you as my realtor and I want to buy this house. Well, that doesn't happen all the time. But you do have realtors come through, and you do have people that are interested in the home, and they may get with their realtor and they may come back and buy the home. But irregardless, you have to capture the data. Okay. Now, what do you do with the data? Well, if those people coming in the house don't have a realtor, you have just captured a lead, a contact, because you were showing the home. And one of the payoffs for you as helping out the listing agent is you've now captured a lead. Okay. So you want to share the information with the homeowner and the listing agent as far as how many came in, especially if there's agents that came in. You want to tell them, hey, Bob Jones came in with Crylike, or whoever Bob works for. But you want to make sure you let that listing agent know those realtors that came in to look at the house, because they will follow up with the realtors. They'll call that realtor and say, hey, Bob, you came by and saw my open house. I was just wondering what you thought. Were you previewing it for somebody? Is there any questions I can answer for you? Okay. They will follow up with those realtors. You don't need to follow up with the realtors, not your house. But those people that come in, and on the bottom it says, is, I am working with a realtor, yes or no. If it's no, okay, they're free game. If they say yes, sometimes they've met a realtor, but they haven't signed on with the realtor. Okay. I'm also very conscious of that. I don't try to push in on someone if they got a realtor. You just don't want to do it. It's still okay to send them a thank you note for coming. If they're working with a realtor, I'll still send them a thank you note. Hey, thanks for coming. Really appreciate you coming to the open house. I'll send them a text or an email. Those people who are not working with a realtor, you've got to follow up with them. You've got to do it. Okay, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. All right. So you've captured the data, you've done everything, you've had a great open house, you called the realtor, because the realtor may say, hey, give me a call after the open house, okay? I usually will do that with them, or I'll do it. Sometimes realtors say, hey, call my client and let them know what happened. So how do you keep on top of how many people come into the open house? Well, I'm gonna tell you what I started doing a few years ago. Actually, I started doing it last year. I did an open house, and it wasn't a real busy open house. And this was about, I guess it's been a year or so ago. And the lady had a Ring doorbell, and she had video cameras in the house too, but she had a Ring doorbell. So every time someone walked up to the doorbell, she could see them coming in and out of the house. Well, I spent most of my time talking to 2 or 3 people. And when she came back to the house, I said, there were probably about 10 people that came to the open house. Well, the actual number of people that came to the open house, I think, was about 7 or 8. And so I told her that. And then the listing agent called me back and said, well, you know, homeowners said that you didn't have 10 people come to that open house. You only had whatever it was, 7 or 8. And only 4 of them really wanted to buy a house. The other ones were just coming with them. Well, technically that was true. I didn't try to mislead the homeowner, but I had miscounted. So what I started doing on the back of this card, I flip one over and I put RAC on it, okay? R means realtors, A means adults, and C means children. A lot of the people that come to the open house will never touch one of these cards. They won't fill them out. You can't make them fill it out. It's just the way it is. But you can still at least capture numbers, okay? So if it's a busy open house, when they come in that door, I'm putting a little mark there. And so at the end of that open house, I can tell someone, listen, I had 4 realtors come to this open house, and they actually left their cards, okay? I had 25 adults come in here. I don't care if they come in by pairs, singletons, or 4 people. I don't care. I'm just counting their numbers. And children, sometimes children is kind of a handy thing to know, because that means that there were a lot of families that are interested in the house. So I will go ahead and put down the ankle biters here, okay? And I'll put down all those children. I'll count them, you know. Now, if someone looks like they're 18 or 19 years old, it's up to you to put them in whatever category. It doesn't matter. You're just doing a true head count here. And I did that because of that one event, okay? And I goofed up, and I didn't mean to, but I can always go back to that card and tell them exactly how many people came. Now, one other thing that you've got to assume when you do an open house, you're going to have to assume that you're being watched the whole time. In today's culture that we're in, there could be small video cameras all over the house, and you may not even know it, okay? Be very careful when you do an open house. Just train yourself, first of all, not to say anything derogatory about the open house. Sometimes people will come into that home and they may hate that color. You can't say to them, I hate that color too. I don't know why they painted that, it's so ugly. You know, you just don't want to go down that road with them. So you can just say, you know, I mean, a lot of people may share that opinion, you know, I mean, or however you want to handle that. And you could say that really is a little bit of an unusual color for homes sometimes. But I don't go anything more than that. I mean, don't get baited into that. So you don't want to say anything derogatory about the home. If they've got something to say, write it down on a card, pass it on to the homeowner, okay? If they come into the house and say, you know, boy, it smells like a bunch of dogs were in this house. Well, it may have been, but you just kind of go, I'll let the homeowner know if they and ask about that. But you don't want to go down there and say, you know, I can hardly stand it in here. Oh man, I got all the windows open up. I can still smell it too. You just don't want to go down that road. You always want to be positive for the homeowner, and you always want to be positive about the home, okay? You don't want to, you know, lie, but you just simply don't want to be negative. It's just not a good way to do it. But always assume that you're under surveillance somewhere. You just got to assume it. And that's just the world we live in. All right, so now you've done the open house. You've gone through the open house. You want to make sure there's no children or dogs left behind in an open house. Go through every room, take a look at it, make sure there's not doors open or drawers pulled open or something that just looks out of place. Leave it the way you find that home. Make sure you close the blinds, you turn off the lights. Make sure when you come downstairs, if it's a 2-story house, you do the same thing downstairs. Double check all the doors that you've opened. If you've opened that back door, you want to make sure you checked it a couple of times, especially on that last crew that comes to the house at 3:55 p.m. Because you may have just locked that door. Well, they now in the house and they have now unlocked that door. If you've got an outbuilding, you want to make sure it's closed up exactly the way it was supposed to be when you got there. And when you leave, you want to be the same. You don't want to leave a house undone. Okay. So you want to make sure the house looks great. Because they may have another showing coming at 4:05 or 4:10 or 4:15. So you want to make sure that you leave the house in good shape. That dustpan that I mentioned earlier, now is a good time to pull it out, especially at the entrances of the house when you first come in the house. It's okay to take that dustpan and clean up those leaves and that little bit of stuff there. Tile floors, sometimes you need to look at tile floors because, you know, things can come off shoes there. You don't have to clean the whole house. It's just that you would like, if it was your house, how would you like it left? So you want to go through that house and make sure it looks really good for the homeowner. Okay, not spick and span, that looks good. All right, so you've gone through the house, you've locked it up, you turned on all the lights. Let me tell you what you're going to do because everybody does it. You're going to turn on all the lights when you first get in the house, and you're probably going to turn on the garage lights that are on both sides of the garage. You're going to lock up the house, put everything in your car. You're going to walk out, put it in your car. You're going to lock it up. You're going to put the key in that box, close it up. You're going to sit in your car, and you're going to realize you left those garage lights on the outside of the house. If you never had that happen to you, count yourself blessed. So before you lock up the house, walk outside and look out there and make sure that those lights are off on the back, on the front. If the lights were on when you got there, leave the lights on. If they were on the back porch, leave those lights on. But make sure you turn off everything like you're supposed to. Make sure the blinds are off and everything's turned off. It's buttoned up. You've made your phone calls. Okay, so now you're done with your open house, right? Okay. You got to go get your signs. Don't forget to pick up your signs. You got to remember where you put them first. Then you need to go get them. It's not a good idea to leave the sign sitting out there. I've done it one time before, and it's kind of embarrassing. But you want to make sure you pick up all of those signs that you have personally put out there. Pick them all up. Okay. Now you got a card. Hopefully you got a stack of them or a sheet of paper with all this information. Now what you want to do is you want to go to the open house best practices sheet. Okay. On an open house best practices sheet, it talks about thank you notes. It talks about phone calls. It gives you some scripts on how to do it. Okay. You need to make sure that you follow up. The gold is in the follow-up. It really is. So you have to follow up with people who come there. Okay. So you want to make sure you follow up. If somebody leaves an address, I send them a thank you note. If they don't leave an address, then just a phone number, I will text them. If they send an email and no text, I'll send them an email. If I have both, I might text them one day and follow up with an email a couple of days later. But you want to make sure you follow up because you just might. I've had 2 people that I've closed with because they have come to the open houses. So, and I've had a couple that I've had really good conversations with. At some point in the future, I may get them. Okay. So you want to follow up with everybody. That's why you're going to do this, because if you do the open house correctly, it's going to take a full day of total hours to do it right. It's going to take 8 hours. It's just going to. By the time you get your listing, print your paperwork, set up for the open house, shut down for the open house, do everything that you're going to do, be there for the open house, it's going to take close to 8 hours of your time. It really will. Maybe 6 to 8, depending how good and how fast you are at this. So you want to make sure you take advantage of that. Okay. So you want to get your signs, you want to follow up, you want to follow up with a listing agent and the homeowner if they're required. Okay. Now, I don't have anything specific right now besides what I've shared with you. Does anybody have any questions?
I'd like to have one of those sign-in cards in my box.
Sylvia, are you asking a question?
Yes, I'd like to have one of those sign-in cards.
Hi.
Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Try that.
Okay. Can you hear me?
For some reason, Sylvia, I am not trying to mute you, I promise, but I can't.
Sylvia, I can hear you and I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. I don't see anything there. I'll tell you what, let me give you, if you will write down my cell phone number, get your pen out. I'm gonna give you my cell phone number. If you're trying to leave a message for me to answer, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. I don't see anything there that tells me I've got anything muted, but if you are, here's my phone number. My phone number is 256-694-1325. So if you have any questions, give me a call on my phone, okay? Don't call me in the next 20 minutes, so guess where my phone is? It's at home. So I left it there before I came here, okay? Now, I'm gonna go ahead and drop off this card in your box, Lisa. This is just a card that I use, so I'll drop it. I have two cards. The other one's got some things written on it. So if somebody else wants one of these cards, just let me know. But right now, if you've got any questions, give me a call. Otherwise, this concludes the open house training for today. When you get a chance to do an open house, have fun, enjoy it. It gives you a chance to connect with people. And really, if you don't connect with people, you can't sell a house probably. So y'all have a great day. Thanks again for coming. And don't forget to give me a call if there's something I can answer. I'll be glad to help you out. Okay. Everybody have a great day.